Hi, it's Paul Roy from CPA Business Coach, and I'm just waiting for my two guests to appear. I had a problem here this morning with my camera, and you know what happens when we get competing platforms who wants to control your computer. And I had just gotten off a Zoom meeting, and when I came on this platform using Restream, um, the wouldn't let me use my camera, so I had to close everything down and come back up. So it just may be a minute before both Doug and Scott come on board here, as I was a few minutes late getting on myself. And what we really want to be talking about here today is what accountants can do to get their lives back during tax season, whether that's in personal filing season or corporate return in Canada, corporate return season, uh, and those types of things. And I see that we have Scott entering the room here now. Scott, good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
There we go. We've got you now. My
Good.
my apologies. I was just explaining that I'd just gotten off a Zoom meeting, and when I'd come up on Restream, um, Zoom said, "No, you can't use the video for Restream," so I had to close it down and bring it back up. So I appreciate your being here, and rather than keep people waiting, I'm going to introduce Scott Lippitt, MBA, who is joining us. Oh, 1 second. Scott, you can go ahead and chat here because this is Douglas.
All right.
All right.
Hello, everyone. So, Paul, Doug, and I are the principals of CPA Business Coach. We started CPA Business Coach because we saw that there was a real need in the accounting industry, not just for general business coaching, but in particular to help them with the challenges the industry is currently facing. There's some very unique challenges happening within the industry. Everything from
Okay.
um,
That's
you know
really
the
strange. Okay.
everything from staffing issues to AI challenges to the industry to the commoditization of the industries. There's a lot of things happening in the accounting world today that caused us to say we can really help the industry. And Paul, Doug, and I decided to start CPA Business Coach. Now it's been probably a couple of years ago. So we're excited. We're passionate about the industry, and we're excited to be on this live stream today to talk about some issues.
That's great. And I actually was Doug on the call, and the link that I sent him that allowed you to get in, he's unable to get in for some
Well,
strange
yeah,
reason.
that link was for learning how to do this type of live stream.
Yeah, but
The,
anyway, it was to click the blue link is what he was supposed to click. So anyway, we'll go ahead and start, and I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to go again and once give Doug a try to make sure he can get on. It's in technology wonderful. And and Scott had taken a minute to introduce himself, and Scott and I actually met at a coaching convention now, what, 6 years ago, I believe we were in Las Vegas,
yeah.
and we had taken a like to each other and our coaching styles, and then as Scott had mentioned, we put our collective heads together to put a program to help accountants become consultants.
Mhm.
And Scott, what do you feel? And then I'm going to ask you this question, and then I'm going to go and try to reach out to Doug. I'm certain may have clicked the wrong link, but rather than go through the technical piece on the screen, what do you feel is the number one problem in the accounting industry is facing right now?
Well, that's a really tough question for so many. I think right now staffing probably is the number one issue. Um, and there's Doug. Hey, Doug.
All
Um,
right,
Good
Doug,
morning. Good
welcome.
morning, guys.
We can trust you that when we're in front of our clients, it isn't fly as you go. We generally go in prepared. Um,
yeah.
this is the first time that the three of us have met on this platform, adverse to our weekly Zoom partners meetings that we have with CPA. But Doug is coming to us from upstate New York, and Doug has owned and operated and managing partner of an accounting firm, Hoffman Group, for quite a number of years before he retired as managing partner, and has a wealth of experience in the accounting business, having built his firm when he started years and years ago from just himself to how many employees at the peak, Doug?
30.
30 employees. Well, that's a fair sized firm. So now that we have you here, what I'm going to do is we asked the question, and I'd already asked the question to Scott actually, and so we'll let Scott answer it. And you had started to respond to it when I got focused on Douglas coming on the screen. My apologies. Go ahead.
Okay. You know, it's probably the top issue is probably staffing right now, with the close second being really how do you hire effective hourly rate. You know, there's two things squeezing in my mind the accounting industry. One, you can't get people to work. Can you hear that in the background, Paul?
Yeah, I can. There might have been something in Doug's background coming through.
Yeah. Let me put it on mute.
All right.
Got a snow cloud going through, guys.
There. So,
there we go.
So I think staffing, if you look at there was a recent article, I think in this week's Accounting Today magazine about, how hard it is to find new staff because there just aren't that many people out there even looking for positions during tax season. And the schools are graduating less and less, partly because the accounting industry's reputation in terms of what it's like to work in accounting firms has taken a bit of a hit of late. That really dovetails neatly into the second biggest issue, which is the effective hourly rate and the hours that it takes to earn a reasonable income. The 80-hour, 70-hour weeks during tax season for the younger generation just isn't something they want to do or willing to do. And we really have the anecdote, not to be salesy, but we have the anecdote for really both of those issues. And we'll talk about, what we believe that anecdote is to the struggles affecting the industry currently.
Okay, that's there's lots going and on in that particular situation. And Douglas, did you want to chime in or add anything else to what Scott had responded to with respect to the challenges within the industry? And because Scott had also touched upon your effective hourly rate on this, but go ahead.
Yeah, the other thing, Scott and Paul, the reason that we're having trouble finding people is several years ago, the AICPA and the national bodies increased the requirements to sit for the CPA exam from 4 years of college to 5 years of college. So students are less likely to go that fifth year and qualify to sit for the CPA exam and to get their license. So I think we shot ourselves in the foot with that move, although I do believe it was necessary from an education point of view. The complexity of the world these days does require further education, but at the same time, that is probably the reason we have less candidates coming up through these days.
Yes, that is. It just they raised the bar up and made it more time consuming and more expensive to get your accreditation.
And I think the kids are willing to spend the time. It's the money that's with a senior in college right now myself. I'm really eager to get that kid off the payroll.
Yeah, exactly. That is true, Scott.
So the next question being is, we hear the term business advisory services, and as I go through websites from accounting firms and everybody seems to have a different definition for what business advisory services is, other than what we would do, for example, because you can have tax advisory, you can have um, exit strategy, advisory things. And so, Doug, tell us a bit, from your coaching, your business clients on really what a business advisory accountant looks like and what they do.
Well, traditionally, CPA firms have always given tax advice, bookkeeping advice, financial statements, and they've done all the compliance work. But unfortunately, CPAs and accounting firms have not really given what I call advisory services. Advisory services, in my definition, includes um, business consulting, business advisory in all areas of their business, from HR management to revenue increases through leads and conversions, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And normally CPAs and accountants stayed away from those areas because they didn't have expertise in it. And unfortunately, the clients aren't getting advice in those areas, especially good advice from anybody else. So when CPA firms started offering a holistic approach to those businesses, then they can find out which areas the businesses are having problems in and help them solve those problems. And if they're doing that, they're going to have clients for life because you're adding value that the client can see and enjoy and increase profits and growth. And those are the areas that the businesses really need help in: profits and growth, accelerating their cash flow, and helping their bottom line to give them more time and money to do what's most important to them in their personal lives.
So, as a supplemental question to that, Doug, what do you see? I mean, why haven't accountants stepped forward to embrace this concept of becoming more of a holistic coach to their clientele?
Most accountants and accounting firms are so buried in their compliance work that they don't have time to do it. And basically, they think that they're doing everything they possibly can for their clients, but they're only doing the compliance part. And basically, the compliance part uh, is not very much appreciated by clients because they have to do it. It's like going to the dentist. You don't really love to go to the dentist, but you have to go to them. When the accounting firms and the accountants start focusing on adding value through business advisory services, you're going to see a whole different attitude from the client when they start appreciating the value that you're giving to them.
Thank you. Really kind of clarifies that quite well, Doug. Thank you. Scott, you've
Yeah,
been.
I actually want to chime in on that, Paul. I think there's an additional reason. Doug's absolutely spot on.
Yes.
There's an additional reason that CPAs, accounting firms, accountants do not offer those holistic, and I love that way of referring to it, Doug, holistic business advisory services, is they don't know how. They don't feel they went to school to be an expert in accounting, not necessarily in business growth or HR issues or those other holistic aspects of a business. But that doesn't mean they have to be experts in everything. There are ways to be trained to not necessarily be a consultant, but to coach business owners on those issues and have the resources to do that and the training to be able to do that. there's a difference between, and I want to be clear on this, there's a difference between consulting and coaching in my mind. And when we're talking about business advisory services with accountants, it's not a consulting model or pure consulting model where the consultant does the work and the consultant makes firm recommendations. And the consultant is an expert on everything. Because it's impossible for you or for myself even to be a client expert on every industry, every business that I work with. And therefore, what you need to do is to coach. And the difference between coaching and consulting is in coaching, you're their mentor, you're their advisor, you're their coach, you're their accountability partner, but the client does the work. And you make sure that they're making right decisions about each of the areas necessary to grow their business and to manage their people properly and to create appropriate processes. And because you're able to help them do those things, your hourly rate can be so much higher because the value associated with that work is perceptually much higher than the compliance work is. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's the reality of the world. There are coaches out there that, and ourselves, you could be making anywhere between $450 and $2,000 an hour. That's not what compliance work is currently getting in most cases.
Thank you for the clarification and adding that extra your piece to that. And I did have another question for you, Scott. And with your having worked with over 40 accounting firms in your coaching career, what were the common areas that the accounting firm owners struggled with in your years of experience?
Well, I touched upon it a bit. The reality is they're working way too many hours for too little money. I mean, if I had to boil it down, what they really want is fewer clients paying them more. So they can work less hours and make more money. So when you look at what it would take to do that, one, you need to increase your prices, increase your rates, but you have to have a differentiating or a market dominating message in the accounting field in order to be able to provide the value that's would demand a higher hourly rate. Or again, if you allow yourself to be positioned as a commodity, then all your clients or your prospects are going to negotiate for the lowest possible rate because that's what you do with a commodity. So again, the only other way to have a higher effective hourly rate and therefore be able to work with fewer clients paying you more and have fewer hours having to be expended is to offer higher value, higher perceived value, and help business owners beyond what you're currently doing. It's the only way.
Doug, how would you frame this up? If you have noticed that a client, for example, in your client roster that may need your help, how do you frame it up, or how do we help move an accountant away from the fee per hour to a result-based fee structure?
Well, the first thing I'd recommend is start delegating the compliance work, because most accountants do that because it's routine and they don't like change. So accept the fact that you're doing work that somebody else can be doing, and you only need to show them once or twice and they can be doing it. So once you do that, then start talking to your client more. Most accountants have their head buried in compliance work and don't really communicate with their clients. Start asking them questions. Ask them what keeps them awake at night. What problems do they have that they can't solve? And find out what their pain points are. Once you do that, then you can offer to help them to resolve those problems that they can't solve. And that's where you can get involved with them. But I find that you need to talk to your clients, especially your ideal clients, at least 3 or 4 times a year, and find out what they're up to and what challenges they have. And that's where you can get into advisory services very, very easily. That's what we call low-hanging fruit.
So what I'm hearing really that it's a two-step process. Short of needing to learn how to coach your clients, you just can't turn the switch without understanding some of the processes. Is that is to get the training to be able to learn how to coach your clients, but also to be, because you have to create the capacity to be able to coach them. So you did bring up the point of outsourcing or downsourcing the compliance work. That's also limiting your effective billable hourly rate, depending on write downs and all those other things.
Exactly, Paul. Exactly.
Okay. Scott, did you want to add anything else into that?
Yeah, and I think it's important. Doug brings it up. I just want to emphasize the point. If you're not a solo, assuming you have some staff, this doesn't mean that you have to be that person within the firm who necessarily is that business advisor. Maybe somebody else is better suited for it, but it is something the firm should definitely take time to consider offering, because it is the trend. If you read anything that's been going on in the industry besides the concerns around AI and the impact that may have on the industry, the other concern or the other issue is how to add business advisory services to your firm. I would definitely take a look whether it's you, the firm principal or founder, and whether you're the right person to be that person who works with your clients in a different capacity than other people in your firm who are the compliance folks. That may just take a little bit of reorg within the firm, or maybe not. It's just a matter of delegating or relegating somebody to a certain role.
And to that end, here, I'm trying to think and talk and turn the dials at the same time. Comes the importance of, Scott, that you had brought in, who in the firm is going to do this. But many of the accounting firms that, I'm working with or you're working with, already maxed, so then it becomes, how do you trust or how do you outsource or downsource those clients? And Doug, what might that conversation look like, when whether you share that information with your clients that we've got somebody else doing your bookkeeping, or whether or not you keep that hush? How do you approach that conversation with your clients?
Well, first of all, if you're getting a new client in, the way I do it is I bring in a junior accountant with me and introduce him right at the beginning. And that way the client understands that it's a team approach, and they're going to be communicating with that team member. And they also get the understanding that if they're, I'm there if necessary, but they don't want to pay my billing rate for every question that could be answered by the junior accountant. So train them right from the beginning as they come in the door. And then if you didn't do that, then start bringing a junior accountant with you as you meet with that client to get them comfortable with that junior accountant if they're a long-time client. And you'll be surprised how quickly they'll pick up on that. And most people will gravitate to asking that junior accountant questions because they'll respect your time and especially respect your billing rate.
And Doug, I think that's brilliant. And I want to emphasize the point. It should start during your onboarding meeting. And if you don't have an onboarding process, you need to create one. And that onboarding process has, from the very start, has to communicate you have a team working with you, not just me. from both two aspects. One, the one Doug brought up, which is the billing rate, which says if you only have me, we would have to charge you an exorbitant rate to do the work. And when you call me with simple questions, you're paying that higher rate. Why not have the advantage of talking to one of the other team members? And it would not only save you money, but probably would have a quicker response than I would be able to give, given my responsibilities in the firm. So you get the value that the client gets from it is both cost savings and a quicker response rate to their question.
We've got a lot of background noise on the call here today, and I don't know what's causing it, because so my apologies for that, but it may be a technology glitch. So, we've got a couple of minutes left here, and what can the accountants do if right now, because in the mindset, because for many of the small business owners who have to have their personal taxes filed, at perhaps a separate time from their business taxes or whatever. How do you go about identifying, Scott or Doug, what you can do now is to create that list of people that you can help? What are some of the things that you can do when that return is in your hand? What should you look for? Doug?
Well, we have what we call the Awesome 8 checklist that we ask the junior accountants and managers to fill out while they're preparing the tax returns or the financial statements. And those questions will highlight areas that the client may need help in. And so once that checklist is filled out, as it moves up the ladder from the junior accountants to the seniors and managers, it filters into a list of follow-up that the firm can do after tax season to see if the client would like to have some help in those areas that are identified. So I think that that's a ripe opportunity as the work is being done to ask those pertinent questions.
Oh, am I muted?
Oh. I think you're muted, Paul.
Oh, all right. As long as I can be heard. I want all the accounting firms to understand the primary goals of their client's business. And primary goals of every entrepreneur is time and financial freedom. That's why business owners start businesses. It's plain and simple. It's not to double their revenue in 2 years. They want to do that in pursuit of time and financial freedom. What Doug, I think, is talking about is finding out what are the challenges that they're facing that's stopping them from achieving that primary goal in their business. And it could be everything from staff to not enough leads, to not enough business, to not enough profit, to cash flow issues. There can be a whole host of challenges that are getting in the way of achieving that. Then at the end of tax season, you can talk about ways your firm, unlike other firms, and by the way, that brings up one maybe last point. Being a true business advisor and not compliance or tax advisor can be a major competitive advantage for your firm versus the other firms that don't provide that service.
And we're all looking for differentiators, and you hit the nail right on the head there, Scott. Thank you very much. We're closing in on a half an hour here. Anything, just Doug or Scott wrapping up? I will say that if you want to reach out to Scott or Doug or even myself, when this goes back up, gets reposted on my LinkedIn page, you can either get to us through cpabusinesscoach.com, and whether you wanted to speak to either of three of us just to have a call and see what it looks like, please do that. Doug also referenced those questions that you can ask when you're delivering that financial statement to your client. And there is a resource page on our website, and you can get access to Doug's Awesome 8. questions that you want to ask your clients when you deliver their financial statements. So I'll put the link for that, and as well to the CPA Business Coach site. Please reach out to us, and thank you very much. This is perhaps our first of what we may try to do once a month, is to sprinkle a little bit of our wisdom and advice on the accounting industry. Last words in parting, Scott or Doug? There you go, Scott. Or Doug.
Okay.
You're good?
Yes, we're good, but keep in mind that as artificial intelligence increase, CPAs and accountants want to get ahead of the curve, and the way you do it is through business advisory services.
Wonderful.
That's it. I think we're at that time, and we want to be respectful, and we'll see you next time.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
gentlemen. And this will be up on my LinkedIn page shortly, and I'll be sharing it with you, Scott and Doug, that if you wish to put it on your social calendars and streams, you can do as well. Have a great day.
Very good. Take care, everybody.